This week's sponsor is Anchor.fm. In our experience as podcasters, Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. Anchor gives you everything you need in one place for free, which you can use right from your phone or computer. They have creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast so it sounds great, and they'll distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard everywhere: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. If you're interested in monetizing your podcast, Anchor sets you up with sponsors with no minimum listenership. What could be easier than that? Download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. The Chains of Reason podcast, where we link the chains of reason that affects our daily lives in society and culture, including, but not limited to, sports and politics.
Welcome back to the Chains of Reason podcast. I'm your co-host, DJ Grand, and I'm here as always with my brother, Jerry.
Hello.
And our trusty producer, Ryan.
Hey.
Today's topic is things that can scare us by either the government or those who are in the government or want the government to do something. I'll start out with a story. This is from the UK, actually, and it's from The Sun. And the title of the article is "Ban on Eating Dogs Blocked by Justice Ministry for Fear of Offending People in the Far East." The new legal ban on eating dogs has been blocked by a Justice Ministry bureaucrats for fear of offending cultural sensitivities in the Far East. Environment ministers have drawn up a criminal offense in Britain of possessing dog and cat meat. Former DFRA Secretary Michael Gove ordered the move in the summer despite the sickening practice being rare in the UK. Dog groups persuaded him that it would send a powerful message to Southeast Asian countries where this practice is still rife, matching a similar law passed in the U.S. last year. It was considered culturally insensitive. Campaign Tory MP Giles Watling was told by the Ministry of Justice that one of the reasons it acted was that it would be culturally insensitive for the government to dictate to other nations what they should eat. Mr. Watling told The Sun, "Dogs are companion animals. We do not eat them, and they are a very important message to send to the rest of the world." And that is a very important message. It's not culturally insensitive because we're not telling them what to do. We're just telling them what we do. Justice officials argued that it would be difficult to enforce the law, and the current ban on transporting or exporting dogs and cat meat suffices. Eating dogs is already banned in Germany, Austria, Taiwan, South Australia, and Hong Kong. An estimated 30 million dogs a year are slaughtered to be eaten across China, the Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, and Cambodia, and most are stolen off the streets. So it's banned in South Australia. I wonder what happened in North Australia. So what do you guys say about that?
Look, I get the Asian culture want to do it, but this is the problem with I thought our country, but apparently this is in the UK.
This is the UK. Well, it is banned in our country too.
No, I get it, but this is the problem with our culture in the world now is everyone's so worried that you can't do something. For example, you're in a plane and you paid first class money and you paid to lean your seat back to relax. But you can't because the person behind you is offended. And most people won't even do it because they don't want to offend that person. Yet you paid for that comfort. This actually happened. I think it was Delta Airlines. The one guy said he didn't even. They want you to turn around and say, "Do you mind?" When it doesn't matter. You failed to do it.
It shouldn't matter.
You're offending my service dog, sir.
Correct. And they turn into this whole big thing because you're in my space, whenever, and you're offending me, and he just wants to relax. This guy I agreed. He was angry, but he went off saying, "Why is I have to be worried about somebody else? Why can't I be comfortable?" This whole country, he was talking to the USA, is worried about what everyone else thinks, and I can't be happy because somebody else might think it's whatever. He even said,
so if we're going to talk about that particular thing, so in other words,
well,
if the guy behind me doesn't let me to put my seat down, but the guy in front of me puts his seat back, then I'm screwed both ways. Someone's in my face, and then I can't.
And that's usually how it happens. But yes, exactly. You must be considerate of others if they'll be offended, even though you're in the complete right for doing it. I mean, one other example was forget the guy's name, but he leaned back, and the old lady was just tapping his back of his chair, annoyingly the back of his head, just kept tapping it, just tapping it to make him stop, make him move back forward, because it was, again, encompassing her. Yeah, again, but he has the right. He paid for the money to do this. So that's where I relate to this. It's going back to what other people feel, and I really don't care what they feel.
I'm afraid of flying, so no, no. But with the dog thing, I mean, I'm a huge dog lover and animal lover and all that stuff. But it is, when you think about the ethics of it all, I mean, factory farming's probably like the most devilish thing in the entire world. Not in the entire, but it's definitely up there. And with how animals are, especially with like cats and dogs, and we overproduce them, people breed them and, don't take care of them. They let them go and all that. So it's like, you could see it on one side where it wouldn't really be that crazy to almost use them, obviously, in that way. If it was if like a stray, or like, they had to put these dogs down and stuff, but no one wants to eat the family friend. I get that. But then it's just like all the other animals that are just getting countlessly slaughtered. And, we go through McDonald's and, don't even think about it. But then someone has a pet chicken or a pet pig and you're like, oh, that's cute.
But I think that's the whole point of this whole vegetarian plant menu now.
Yeah.
They don't want you eating meat.
Well, we'll get to the vegan argument in one of my later articles that I brought. But as far as this particular one goes, have you seen the way the Chinese and the Philippines and all those treat the dogs that they catch for this? I mean,
but they're going to eat
inhumane. I'm sure it's pretty bad.
Inhumane is an easy word for it. It's
like
worse than
the
that.
ones like they're going to like
the
eat
ones they're
stuff.
going to eat.
Yeah, but I think that's part of their.
It's damn near torture.
Now.
It's.
I mean, I think that's just the way they do it with anything. Like if it's like they have like the roosters and chickens and and fish and all that.
They're torturing them while they're in their cages. We're not talking about after they're hanging them up. Not talking about when they're about to kill them. They're actually torturing them while they're in cages. And this is what I can't stand. It breaks my heart.
Yeah,
it breaks my heart if I see those Sarah McLachlan videos of the dogs
I'm
and
the
stuff.
same way. I can't watch them.
Okay, it breaks my heart just that. But to see those dogs in cages being tortured and then on the way to be killed after that, it's absolutely disgusting.
But that's the thing. It goes with the factory farming thing. I mean, that's the bigger picture of it all. Like, these are cultures that are just trying to survive, and they're just eating things. They're, if the dog wanders into the wrong
that argument
restaurant,
may be okay about the trying to survive part. Maybe.
I think they would do it to any animal. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not like
you're
they're
maybe right
looking
about
for
that.
dog.
You may be right about that, but I don't think that works in China anymore, at least, because they're not exactly poor anymore. I mean, they're an economic powerhouse. So and they still eat the dogs. So that argument about doing it to survive, for them anyways, I don't think that flies. However, see, if the culture is different obviously their culture is different, but in our culture we say they're pets.
Yeah.
And to say, and at least now this story doesn't apply to America, but the UK said we're not going to make a law because it's going to offend someone in a different culture when that's, I want to say our culture, but let's just say it's the Western culture. And it shouldn't matter if we offend them or not, because we do treat dogs a little different than we treat chickens and cows. And
we treat them very well,
Yes,
that's why
for the most part. And there's some people that
make
abuse
the law
them,
and they get offended. Oh, well, they'll get over it, just like we got to get over the way they treat their animal before they whatever. So same thing.
But we don't have the problem of, we have so much food. I mean, it really, for us at least, you don't have to go to that level of eating a dog or a cat or something like that.
If we were talking about North Korea, I would with you, because they are poor and they may need that. I mean, they may have that, because human life is more, on a moral standpoint, human life is a higher value than. However, take away that context of those few that could possibly still be that way. Like I said earlier, China is not like that. Not the most of China anyways. The cities in China are not like that at all
I go as far as Japan, the Philippines, but when you get into Thailand, Cambodia, those kind of, you kind of borderline. That could be,
Well,
They're not really that
the
rich.
point I'm trying to make is the Western civilization shouldn't care what the East.
No.
If we're going to make laws
offended.
based on what
Yeah.
our values, it shouldn't matter if they get offended or not.
I mean, it's not even offensive. It's just
I guess
No, according to this article, it would offend those in the
if
East.
that was the case, Roosevelt must have offended them by cutting off their oil
Wait, yeah.
back in World War II. But when it started, how they cut off Japan with the oil, that wouldn't offend
Well,
Japan.
of course it offended them. That's why
Okay,
they
that's the whole-
attacked us.
Well, yeah, but
I mean, that's why they
and-
got us
and
into
Roosevelt
World War
shouldn't
II.
have done that because it would have offended them. He should have known better. The whole point.
There's so much more
Who cares
I can say
about the damn offended?
about FDR that is much more offensive than
Well,
what
I
he
guess
did
who
about
cares
the oil
about the
embargo.
offensive part? That's all I'm saying.
Okay, well, my point is that the Western civilization shouldn't care. Our values are different than their values, and we shouldn't base our laws
They're based on
whether
emotion.
we offend someone in the East. That's,
no. Yeah, I agree.
Okay, my next one is on our side of the Atlantic Ocean, and this is from New York City. A school diversity committee formed by Mayor Bill de Blasio wants to eliminate programs for gifted and talented students, claiming they perpetuate racial inequality because they're comprised mostly of white and Asian students. This is from PJ Media, by the way. The committee also recommended scrapping all forms of screening for students across the city. The report has no binding power, but de Blasio can implement the panel's recommendation if he wishes. De Blasio only said of the report, every child, regardless of zip code, has a right to attend a school where they can thrive. Before I go on further, if you put a child who is not gifted into a gifted school, they're not gonna thrive.
It reminds me of that story you were telling a while back about that family where the kid was so gifted and the father, they had the little ear things.
Okay.
Same thing.
Well, in a way, the school's chancellor had already openly questioned the legitimacy of the gifted and talent programs, including a group of Queens parents in February. When you have over 35% of your students be designated as gifted and talented, we need to bottle the water we're drinking and ship it all over the place. As if you can take someone who's gifted and shift what there is inside their head
intelligence.
all over to the districts in New York. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's like X-Men, you know,
It's-
like they're like, oh, let's get
okay.
the gene, you know.
It's absurd.
It's stupidity.
It's absurd. It literally
Yeah.
is absurd. And this is what's scary about it to me is that one of the hallmarks of evil is hating the good
They're punishing
for
the good
being
for being
good, not for their vices, but for their virtues. And this is exactly that. They are punishing gifted children because they're good.
Yeah, it's not their fault.
And then rewarding the ones who aren't for being not gifted.
Well, okay, and then we can take that one step further. They also are lowering the standards to make it easier for the non-gifted
To become gifted.
Exactly. It's bogus. It's false, and it gives these. There have been a lot. I mean, Thomas Sowell, one of the smartest men in America, said that you take, and he's a black man, and he said you took black kids from non-gifted schools and put them into like Harvard and stuff, and they ended up failing. I mean, they would be top of the line in their non-gifted school, and they'd go to Harvard and end up failing. And this is exactly the same type of thing that would happen. These you can't bottle it. It's either you have it or you don't.
Yeah, that's Joe Rogan had a I can't think of her name, but one of his latest podcasts he had this Asian lady on who they just talked about a lot of different topics, but they talked about how people from like Asian cultures and stuff like that, you know, a lot of people always look at them like they're just like born with these big brains and stuff, and they're just geniuses out of the bottle, and
That's how they're raised.
and that's like basically what it is. And she's just saying it's like it sucks. It's like this is not how you should be raised, and all this like comparing childhood of, you know, most like Koreans and you know, Chinese and like all, you know, Asian culture in general. And there's a lot of, you know, cultures that are like this. It's just like you hit the books, you know, right out of the womb, and they're just so trained that way. Of course, when they get to these schools that we know of, like Harvard and, you know, the top of the top, that's not really that big of a deal for them. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we got to study 24 hours a day. All right. Isn't there 25 hours in a day? You know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't really like hit them. Like if even people that are hardworking and smart that grew up here will think of that as a big challenge, and they can overcome it. You know, it's not like they can't do it if they're the right person, no matter what their ethnicity is and stuff like that. But if you're not brought up that way, you're behind on the curve, you know?
Well,
So,
I also think we just talked about different cultures. I think in the Asian culture, at least in the American Asian culture, or to be Asian American culture, they value education.
Yeah.
And they push it in their kids because they know that will give their kids a better lift.
They're real strict.
And, yes.
Yeah.
And I don't see anything wrong with that. I think that's
it sounds
great.
bad just because we have, you know, just being American and, you know, you're like, oh, you know, summer's off. Yeah. You know, like, I want winter break. I want, got all these spring break and all these things that, whatever, you know, that's our culture, which is great.
More
in
recreation
its sense.
than it is
Yeah.
learning, education.
And a lot of people, you know, follow that roller coaster a little bit more than they should. And then it's like there's other cultures that are gonna be like, no, you'll get rest. There's no break.
Or you could say you'll get rest when you're dead, but I've heard
that too. And that's where the opposite of it too, because you see the work culture of that, where they just, you know, people just commit suicide because they're just worked to death, and that's
Well, if you
their
go to
life.
Japan, their culture is
With the nets.
they
and
embrace
stuff.
the corporate life, the work life. I mean, that's an Asian culture.
Yep.
It's slightly different, but I homeschool my daughter, and I kind of regret that I give her the summers off, because I really think had I pushed her to work those summers, she'd be so much farther ahead right
obviously
now.
should be, yeah.
I mean, and I'm that's my regret of the homeschooling, where I think I made a mistake. I should have pushed her, and of course the problem is she has these friends who get summers off.
Those dang friends.
Yes, every time, and that was a huge influence on her. So she kind of wanted it off.
But I think, you know, I'm not saying I know any of the answers, but it's just and this is our fault in our culture, where it's just, you know, yeah, you do need some decompression and just relaxation and stuff like that, but you can use that in so many other productive ways of, you know, yeah, you don't have to be at your classes you hate, the school that, you know, annoys you and whatnot, but when you're on these breaks and stuff, you could be still writing, you could be still reading, you could still be doing certain
I agree with you,
things.
and also it implements a false
or just
sense.
participating in something.
No, I agree. Something productive. I agree. Something constructive.
Mm-hmm.
But it also gives kids a false sense of what adult life is going to be, because once you hit the workforce, you get 2 weeks off.
Well, and then
and
you get
that's
that, and then you get that option of like when they become an adult, like, do you want to do that? I mean, that's on you. So it's like, wait, like, I just don't have to. That's when, you know, it's like, all right, I can find a job in a month, 2 months, 2 years.
I'm with you.
I mean, that's
It can lead to
that's when
procrastination.
real life happens, you know.
I agree. The point is, getting back to what...
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's okay. No, I like this. I like the conversation. We're doing good here. But I just think that it's wrong to punish people for being good. It's the hallmark of...
And I hate bringing up the Asian culture a lot too, but like they had that whole thing with being penalized for their Harvard scores and all that. For being Asian, they had to have better scores than like other people. That was like a whole big thing. That's kind
of like the reverse discrimination thing. No, I agree. It is absolutely racist. And if your skin color, I don't care if it's white, black, brown, yellow, should not get you in or out of a college admission. It should be based on merit. Mm-hmm. And of course, this is the end. What?
Affirmative action's based on...
It's not based on merit.
I know. It's based on skin color.
And I see that as a huge problem.
Yeah.
And it's obviously... people are going to get mad at this, but affirmative action is a racist doctrine because it's based on race. Whether they like it or not, it's based on race. There may have been an argument in the 40s, 50s, 60s, maybe even the 70s.
Yeah.
But we're long past that. And you can't just say just because you're a certain skin color you deserve to be in this school.
Yeah.
That's wrong to those who you're cutting out that do deserve to be in this school. Once again, hating the good for being good.
Even if like the population of the school is mostly that whatever, it doesn't mean anything. You know what I mean?
Well, there's a contradiction to that too. No, you're right.
Yeah.
But my point is, there are all black schools.
Yeah.
How are they not racist?
But
I'm not saying it's wrong. You should,
Yeah.
if you want to go to an all black school, you should have the ability to. You should have the,
if they're
the freedom
saying,
to.
but that's what I'm saying. If they're saying they're that kind of school, but I'm just saying if there's like a Harvard or these top echelon schools that are, primary, like the population is mostly like, let's just go back with Asian, because I think that's the whole thing, is there are a lot of Asian people in there. Like, you would be the minority going in there. That shouldn't matter for a school like Harvard. Like, if it's a school that's saying, we are an all black school, that's them saying that that's what they are. It
Yes,
doesn't matter.
I agree.
What,
I totally agree with
like
that.
you're
All
saying
boys or
you're
all
Harvard or
girls.
I agree.
Stanford or all that. No matter
It's one thing
what
to
outweighs
it's one
the other.
it's one thing to self-segregate. It's another thing to have the government segregate. And
Yes,
that's the
yeah.
problem. And in a way, it you are in a way segregated when you use affirmative action to allow someone in or out based on race.
Yeah.
So, but I totally agree with you. If the Asians do better on their entrance exams, they deserve to get in there. It's based on merit.
Yeah.
And the socialists, of course, hate merit. They want total equality. And we've gone over this egalitarian argument, at least in our last podcast we did, I think, or was it this podcast? Regardless, the only way everyone can be totally equal is at the local cemetery when everyone's equally dead.
Yep.
So it's there's no way you can get what they want with that form of legislation. Our next scary story is once again here in America. This is from The Blaze just a few days ago, February 15th. Democratic U.S. Senate candidate unveils campaign logo, the guillotine as a symbol of the work we have to do. Bray Kidman, spelled B-R-E, so I'm assuming that's Bray, unveiled a new campaign logo, a guillotine, the execution apparatus commonly associated with the French Revolution that was used for the beheadings of King Louis XVI and his wife, Queen Marie Antoinette. But fear not, Kidman, who hopes to challenge Republican Senator Susan Collins in November, says using the image of the deadly device in campaign materials is not meant to be taken literally. They always say that in the beginning.
Is she? I take it she's a Democrat.
Yeah, it's Democrat U.S. Senate candidate, yes. Her quote is, "We are not going to start a guillotine in Monument Square in Portland and start beheading people," Kidman clarified to the Portland Press Herald. "It's a symbol of the work we have to do to overcome the flaws in our system, flaws that have become deeply evident." The guillotine T-shirt reminds others about it in the hopes that we'll all be motivated to address a very serious problem with our government before a similarly violent uprising becomes inevitable. The socialists always want the violent uprising. The main Democrat unveiled the campaign merchandise shortly after the Senate acquitted President Donald Trump. A quote from Kidman, "More details on how to get your guillotine T-shirt tomorrow. In the meantime, remember, there is not going to be a more convenient revolution." In a separate tweet, Kidman clarified the intent is only symbolic to behead Republicans in money and politics. To go a little further, Kidman used the guillotine as a campaign symbol. It is not the first time this Democratic Socialist invoked violent imagery. In an undercover video taken by Project Veritas, a campaign staffer named Kyle Jurek argued that if Sanders were to win in November, I would assume that means Bernie
The election,
Sanders,
yeah.
Trump voters would be subject to re-education in Soviet-style gulags. In Nazi Germany, after the fall of the Nazi Party, there was SHIT ton of populists that was effing Nazified. Germany had to spend billions of dollars to re-educate the people to not be Nazis. We're probably going to have to do the same effing thing here, Jurek said. That's kind of what Bernie's whole free education for everybody is, because we're going to have to teach you to not be an effing Nazi. He added, there's a reason Joseph Stalin had gulags, and actually gulags are a lot better than what the CIA has told us that they were. People like people were actually paid a living wage in gulags. They had conjugal billets in gulags, and gulags were actually meant for like re-education. So there's part of the problem. One thing leads to another.
This lady's dangerous.
Oh, it's absolutely. And to equate that gulags were a great place to live, once again, that's kind of scary and evil.
What are gulags again? It's like
it's what the Soviets would round people up. It's basically their prison camps, and it would be re-education, but it was hard
you're
labor,
like forced in. Yeah.
Yes, so a re-education camp by itself is a non-freedom event, because you can't have freedom of thought in a re-education camp. I mean, think of what this person said, who Project Veritas identified, that you can't think as a Republican, you can't think differently, and that's scary. What I don't like about what this U.S. Senate candidate, it's a lack of actual history, because if anyone studied the French Revolution, even though they happened at the same time, the American Revolution and the French Revolution were two diametrically opposite revolutions. One believed in individual freedom. The Jacobsons in the French, it basically said, if you don't agree with us after they took control, you get the guillotine too. And they used it against people who disagreed with them when they came to power. That's why it was called the Reign of Terror. I mean, blood happened well after King Louis and Marie Antoinette. And she's taken lightly to put it as her symbol, but what it can lead to is just so scary. People don't understand what this means.
That is scary.
Symbol of the guillotine?
The guillotine, yes. Yeah. Yes, to put that as your symbol for the U.S. Senate.
Sell T-shirts.
That's just.
You might want to rethink that.
It's not only inappropriate. It could be also said immature. It's downright stupid.
Yeah.
It's like I said. It's not really having a sense of history, and it tells me she's ignorant of history if she's willing to put that on her T-shirts.
Yeah. And again, it's just, I guess if you're trying to run for anything. Unless it is I don't know. I guess unless that is what you're trying to do is be offensive, it's like, why would you want to put something like so violent, I guess, you know?
No, I totally agree with you. It basically, it says the same idea what that later person for Bernie Sanders was saying, that they're going to have to force you not to be a Republican. I don't agree with Republicans on a lot of things. I also don't agree with the Democrats on a lot of things as well. But to force me into one camp or another is insulting on so many levels. It's intellectually insulting that I can't think for myself. It's morally insulting, because what you're basically saying is, when you want to do that, your morality isn't good. I'm going to replace your morality with my morality, which is so much superior. You have to come along to my morality. That's an insult to everything philosophically. So to me, that's scary that someone who's running for Senate, someone's supposed to look for legitimacy as a senator, is going to put that on as a campaign slogan. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
Hope she doesn't win.
But then it's it's just funny to think that, you know, no matter with Trump and stuff like that, you know, he has Make America Great Again, which could be the more like positive, nice thing ever. But you can't even say that or put that on a shirt or a hat, and you know.
I totally agree with you on that. It's a benign saying. It just goes to show you that Trump
that's like the person behind it too, you know, like
no, but Trump could just put a USA on those red hats, and they would have hated that.
Yeah, you'd have to take down your flags and stuff.
They would have hated that, all because there's such an animosity toward Trump. It's what they call the Trump derangement syndrome. There are a lot of things that Trump I don't agree with, but there are also things that he's done that's good. Number one, taking on China for their tariffs. Mm-hmm. I think that is great, admirable. Taking out the leader of ISIS, great. But there are things that he does as well as that is just as scary, like when we're going to talk about tariffs again, holding tariffs to our allies. For the most part, I think he should have at least backed off a little bit on that. But to say that he's outright wrong no matter what, just because he's Trump, just because he's Republican, and that's what this is.
Yeah.
It's because he's Republican, he's automatically wrong. Once again, no freedom of thought. These are the people that always say diversity, diversity, but they don't want diversity of thought.
Yeah.
It's scary if you think on your own. It means you're an individualist.
That scares me every day.
Yes, it does. These last two basically are around the same subject, but I think it definitely needs to be talked about. This is also from The Blaze. Climate activist calls for the extinction of the human race. Last night, a climate activist in Portland, Oregon, has a novel solution for improving the environment: eradicate the human race. In an article for the UK's The Guardian newspaper, Knight detailed his 5-decade-long journey in advocating for the end of mankind. 50 years ago, quote, 50 years ago, I concluded that the best thing for the planet was a peaceful phase out of human existence. We're causing the extinction of hundreds of thousands of other species. With us gone, I believe ecosystems will be restored and there will be enough for everything. No more fighting over resources, end quote. Well, there won't be enough for humans, so anything doesn't matter. Surprised, Knight conceded the idea wasn't as well received as he hoped. Huh, no kidding on that one. Still, the climate activist said he led by example and voluntarily had himself sterilized in the 1970s. At 25, I wanted to show I was serious. A medical school gave me a discounted vasectomy in exchange for being a student's doctor's first try at the procedure, which was successful.
Jeez,
remember being a guinea pig.
That'd be scary.
Yes, it would be.
It's like if you really want to stand by that, just go get it done the right way.
I'm with you. But hey,
it's his stuff. He can do whatever
I totally
he
agree.
He
It's
could have
his.
took Swiss Army knife.
Obviously, he didn't value that stuff, so that's why he said, "Go ahead and do it." Anyways, to continue, then in 1980, Knight settled in Portland, a liberal haven, where he founded the Voluntary Human Extinction Project. Voluntary Human Extinction Project. Can we think about that just for a second?
Yeah, it seems like terrorism, almost like trying to destroy all humans, right?
Our message is simple, he wrote. We encourage people to stop procreating so the biosphere might return to its former glory and everyone already here will be able to live life more abundantly.
If we're gone, how are they going to live life abundantly?
Oh, he's saying the people who castrate themselves and sterilize themselves can still live. They just can't have any more children, so those will live abundantly. That's his argument.
Oh, good Lord.
I agree.
The population thing,
it's part of population control. Yes, it is.
Makes sense.
And here's where this is part of the reason why I'm so against the climate change movement. And he spells it out. The climate activist says that couples lending themselves to just one child is not good enough. Procreation today is the moral equivalent of selling berths on a sinking ship. Knight said his motivation have also changed. I was a deep ecologist at first, caring more about our impact in the ecosphere than human needs. I've become more concerned, a quote from him, I've become more concerned about any new humans being brought into existence. It's true that society would be greatly diminished without children, but it isn't right to create them just because we like to have them around. Unsurprisingly, and here's the part I was trying to get to, Knight also attacked American capitalism. We don't need to breed more wage slaves to prop up our obsolete system. If we go extinct, other species will have a chance to recover. I'll never see the day when there are no humans on the planet, but I can imagine what a magnificent world it would be, provided we go soon enough, he said. So before I give my opinion on that, let's see what you two have to say, Jerry.
Well, it's an attack on capitalism, which is flat out ridiculous. That's what they want to end. It's not had nothing to do with the climate. I mean, that last statement you just read there kind of clears that a lot. But it's crazy. It's insane. This whole not having babies and extinction is just absolute psychobabble.
I'll probably get into this more with the next article, but the whole issue of climate change is at its core anti-capitalist. It's been said before, and I did not originate this, but it's watermelon. It's green on the outside and red on the inside. Green being environmental, red being communism, and that's exactly what it is. They don't want capitalism. They don't want free choice. They don't want you to have the choice. They want you to force. They want to force you to do their bidding. Ryan, do you have anything? What do you think?
I mean, the population thing is always a problem. With just I mean, There's people that probably, have too many kids that, shouldn't, or yeah, there might be too many people living longer. That's another thing too. You got to think about that too, because we're living longer. That just puts the whole world different as well. So, I mean, it's tough. I mean, he definitely has like a more extreme point that he's trying to make, where, like, yeah, everyone, we all want the world to be green and lush and nice, and so we all can live peacefully. But I think with the movement of like technology and stuff like that, we're trying to balance it out as best we can,
Well, the next two articles I read, I'm going to score, but I'll get to my big problem with this and why it's so scary. It's absolutely, I'm not going to say the advocates are, but the notion, the idea is immoral. And the reason it's immoral is morality has to have a standard of value. That standard of value is man or mankind. Anything that is put above man is immoral because the standard of value is man. Well, what does this do? It puts the earth, the world, or not the world, the earth above mankind. Nothing can be more evil than that. It literally says man is bad. It's part of my problem with religion also agrees with that man is dirty, man is bad. But in this case, it's a different form of religion. It's the religion of climate change. And they treat it exactly like a religion, too. It's almost exactly the same thing, but the other side, instead of Republicans doing it, it's the Democrats doing it.
Yeah.
So my point is that those who put animals above humans are just as immoral as those who put the earth above humans. Humans is the standard of value. If you didn't put human as a standard of value, or if human was the center of morality, then the human species would die out. That's exactly what they want. And that's why this is immoral. They want the human species to die out. Humans are bad. Besides the fact that the earth wasn't all that peaceful and loving before mankind. The dinosaurs ravaged each other. I mean,
animals still did their thing.
And they do that to this day. I mean,
we do that to this day. So it's
well, if you get rid of all humans, let's run with that premise. Are you telling me the lions are going to stop attacking gazelles?
No, yeah.
There's no point. Everything else will thrive. He said that.
But wait a minute. Don't the gazelles have a right to not be attacked by the lions? This is one simple example. I'm trying to show you that it's not consistent.
It's the Second Antler Amendment.
Very good.
But I mean, I think in all with this, I mean, I see what he's trying to say, but I mean, in the end, if you're really worried about this, it's like we're going to probably implode on ourselves anyways, just with how people are. And if we keep, we're trying to balance it out, like I would mention before.
What exactly do you mean by implode?
Just using resources from the earth. And yeah, we are at the top of the food chain, and, we're going to wear out the earth at one point. It could be thousands and thousands of years,
I think human ingenuity will stop that from happening. A good example is in the 70s, we were told oil's going to run out. We're going to run out of those resources.
Yeah.
And then now comes along fracking, and America.
Electric cars.
Well, that too. But fracking allowed America to be the largest energy producer in the world. Mm-hmm. That was unheard of back in the 70s when I was a kid. Well, what caused that? Human ingenuity.
Yeah.
In a way, you're right with the electric cars, but I have to temper that, because if you go with the windmills, the solar panels, they're not efficient. You can't sustain enough energy with those things to keep us in the lifestyle that we have today. And if you run with their argument, you can't have air conditioning. You can't. I mean, could you live without air conditioning in 100-degree weather?
It'd be not fun.
How about for your daughter? That's even more important.
I could do it. Actually, I didn't even grow up with air conditioning, so I only had air conditioning when I moved out when I was probably like, mid-20s and stuff like that. So
would you only let your daughter not have air conditioning?
No, I'm just kidding. I want to give her everything I can.
See,
so.
there's my point. And what they want to do is take us back to the primitive.
Yeah.
Which where the primitive is no air conditioning.
Horse and buggy days.
Yes.
Yeah, that's like the whole minimalist to, it's like there is a fine line to that where it is smart to be minimal in a lot of ways, but yeah, we don't need to be,
within context.
That's what I'm saying. Like, yes, live more simple, live by your means, but
if you mean live more simple, don't waste.
Exactly.
Then I'm with you.
Because I could have 2 air conditionings in this house. I mean, if I really want it cold.
There are,
and some people might do that.
I understand a compost pile. I get that. I do. But I don't want to force everyone to have a compost pile.
Yeah, forcing, yeah.
Yes. I understand recycling, but I don't want to force everyone to recycle. George Carlin had a great argument one time, and even though he's a comedian, I think it's very appropriate. He thought that plastic maybe was beneficial to America or the world, and maybe the world evolved to have plastic. I mean, you should go and listen to his rant on it. I mean, he does a much better job than I could ever give him. But the point is that we can't know everything, and we don't know that maybe. Once again, human ingenuity, I think, is going to be able to solve any problems that we have that comes along.
And there's all those things that when the first plastic bottle was made, no one thought that it was going to be a big patch in the ocean somewhere. But we have cell phones and these things that we take so much for granted that run our world. And it's like, what is that going to be in the next 100 years? I mean,
well, those that are pushing for climate change, are they willing to get rid of those cell phones? Because
I will not give up my Twitter account. It's
well,
I don't know.
It takes oil to make those cell phones.
Exactly.
So
I think throwing
there's
those
the
away and
contradiction
recycling
in them.
them.
But I don't think they're serious about the climate change as they claim to be. Because I guarantee you, these millennials that are so for climate change, every one of them are buried in their cell phone.
Yeah.
I don't think they'd be willing to give that up.
Until they have like organic phones.
I really don't think so.
Yeah, that'd be a hard thing for Apple to do.
The last one,
and it's called Apple. That's funny. So
very good. The last one I have, it's 2 articles, but they're based on the same exact person. One is from the right-leaning Blaze, and the other is from the left-leaning Yahoo and Yahoo Lifestyle. And basically, it's professor says that we can fight climate change by not having any more babies and letting the human race become extinct. It's almost the same exact argument we just went over in the last one, but this professor wrote a book, and the sad part of it, she's a continental philosophy professor, and that gives philosophy such a bad name. This is the reason why people say, I don't want that crap. It has nothing to do with reality because of stuff like this. Her book is called The A-Human Manifesto. And we need to talk about what a-human means, because the prefix a means not.
Like asexual. Like,
yes, apolitical, amoral. All those are not sexual, not political, not moral. So this is not human. So once again, based on what I said, humans or mankind is the standard value, and you have a not human manifesto. Could you get any more evil? Could you promote any? I'm not going to say she's evil because she may not know what she said is evil. She may truly believe it, but be mistaken. And I'll try and give her what the left doesn't give anyone on the right, the benefit of the doubt. That maybe all these climate activists are just mistaken. But what they're advocating is the absolute, it says the extinction of humankind. Nothing could be more immoral than that. Anyways, the article goes, the basic premise of the book is that we're in the age of Anthropocene, and humanity, which is basically human-driven humanity, has caused mass problems. And one of them is creating this hierarchical world where white, male, heterosexual, and able-bodied people are succeeding. And people of different races, genders, sexualities, and those with disabilities are struggling to get that. Coming from a person who is technically disabled, I think that's total BS. I mean, I'm able in different things. My broken neck stops me from doing things, but that doesn't make me disabled. I just don't like that label, first of all. And second of all, it's not stopping me from doing anything. But then again, I'm white, male, and heterosexual because therefore I'm wrong on that instance, according to her.
You monster.
Yes. Thank you very much. The article goes on. This was an idea of dismantling identity politics comes in. They deserve rights not because of what they are, but because they are. The book also argues that we need to dismantle religion and other overriding powers like the Church of Capitalism or the cult of the self. Now, I've talked about the virtue of selfishness before, and what I mean by that is the same thing Ayn Rand meant, is that thinking through your own head. She does not want you to think through your own head. She wants you to think through her head and what she thinks. And she also goes on, I think it's in the other article, to talk about how it leads to veganism. And didn't we talk about that earlier about veganism and earlier in the
talked about the dogs.
The whole dogs, yeah.
Well, the point is that here it is. Among the tenets, besides antinatalism, which is no babies, is veganism, specifically abolitionist veganism, which is the belief that all sentient beings, human or non-human, have a right to not be treated as a property of others. But isn't that a contradiction in terms? Isn't she treating humans as property by telling them they can't procreate?
Yeah.
I don't think she gets that, though. And she'll say that's different.
So, from her again, quote, so being an abolitionist vegan also has far-reaching consequences for feminism, for anti-racism, for queer theory, because it's all about each individual fighting for a space for the other, to allow the other to simply be. But that's exactly what individualism is. If you care about every single individual, every one, then you care literally about everyone. Not just, I mean, that's the only way you could possibly care about the whole world, is to care about every single individual. It's an undeniable fact. If you care about some group, who's ever outside that group, you don't care about.
Yeah.
So whoever's not included in that, it doesn't matter anymore. So how can that be inclusive? See, these are the contradictions that either they don't think about or they do think about and they don't care about. And these are the inherent problems with this form of climate change. I mean, she says capitalism is a cult. I say climate change is a cult.
Yeah, it definitely can be.
I think it's almost like a religion. They bow to it, but they've bowed to a different form. Instead of God, they're bowing to the God of nature.
The guy that's not on the clouds.
Yes, a God that lives in the earth.
Yeah.
Do you guys got anything else to add to just what I consider this immoral or climate change?
Ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, I don't got really anything to really say about it, but it's just, there's only so much you can do, but, just trying to, do the best you can with what you got with just, if you believe in recycling, do that. And yeah, it's such a big problem, I don't think it's one thing,
I don't consider myself a libertarian, but I do believe in liberty, and you should have the liberty. If you want to have recycled, great, do it. If you don't do it.
Yeah.
Just by your recycling will save something, even if your neighbor doesn't recycle. Mm-hmm. So you shouldn't. It's all about force is immoral. Initiating force, maybe more specific. Initiating force is immoral, and when you force someone through a law to do something, you are initiating force.
Yeah, and it's like you're saying it's being forced to do something, which is the gross thing about it. So.
Absolutely. Do either of you two have any other scary stories or to talk about, or topics, not stories to talk about?
The human race is probably the scariest, so I can't beat that.
Amazon knows everything. No,
I love the humor. Yeah. So if you want to get in touch with us, you can do so through our website at chainsofreasonspodcast.com. You can get our email address through there and get in touch with our social media. How can anyone be enlightened when the truth is so poorly lit?